We bought 10 laptops just to add to our inventory. So we had an inventory of laptops, and they left them in my driveway in a Jenga pile.
Yeah.
And I came back from lunch and saw them there, and I'm like, great. Glad it's not raining.
Oh, my God.
And you don't live in a bad neighborhood.
Yeah, or the neighbor wasn't jonesing for free laptops.
I got a pretty good neighborhood, and they're all afraid of my dogs and the suspected guns.
Wow.
Rightly so, afraid of
the
you.
rightly expected guns.
You know what's funny is they probably were expecting Patrick was baiting somebody to come into the yard. Do it.
That's right.
Grab the laptops.
I dare you to grab one. I dare you to walk into his yard. You're not like, get off my lawn. You're like, get off my lawn.
That's trespassing.
So, guys, what's new?
Not much, Carl. What's new with you, man?
Just, living the dream, as you say.
Dreaming to live.
Dreaming to live. We sort of came down to the wire on stories here. There was plenty of stuff to pick from, but we sort of ran right up to the deadline.
Well, where do you want to start?
We've got 6 good stories here. So let's start with the first one. The Twitter hacker charged with the theft of $784,000 in cryptocurrency with something called a SIM swap.
Sounds so technical, right?
Well, it's not like, hey, trade SIMs with you. I don't think that.
I haven't gotten that request in so
people
long.
do that. And for the complete Luddites, a SIM is the little chip that goes inside your phone that gives you phone service and also generally keeps your contacts.
Wait,
and
it's
all
not that
stuff.
computer game, The Sims? Because SIM swap is an entirely different thing at that point. I was reading the wrong article.
Now we got an R rating. Great.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Trying to keep this show clean, man.
Yeah, good luck. So this is all about multi-factor authentication. And so for those that don't remember, multi-factor authentication means that you draw your security from more than one of the factors. And the factors are something you have, like a key card, a credit card, a key. A key is actually a form of that. Something you know, password, PIN, secret passphrase, right? Whatever. And something you are, DNA, fingerprint, retinal scan. But there's a fourth one that's emerging and starting to become accepted, which is something you do, like your gait or your speech. Speech is kind of in the middle. Some people say it's something you are. Some people say it's something you do. Their typing pattern. So I was on a little segue. I was on a panel with AFCEA down in Florida, which is a military user group, basically. Yeah. And I was talking to a colonel at DISA, the Defense Intelligence
Security Agency?
Security Administration.
I think you told the story already.
Yeah, and it's the one where he was typing and his typing cadence changed because of a spider bite, and they came in and checked his ID.
Right.
So it's you definitely want to bring multiple security checks from different families, and that's called multi-factor or two-factor.
I learned something about CAPTCHAs, and a CAPTCHA is any time that you go to log in somewhere and you get this grid of pictures and you're supposed to click on all the pictures that have traffic lights in them, right?
Every time I come up as a robot.
Because you're a robot.
Right.
Entirely possible.
But
you're a robot.
The thing is, they're not just looking at the pictures that you select. They're looking at how long it takes you to go through them. And even if you get one wrong, that's questionable. They'll still, okay, you're not a robot.
Because you're a human.
But for me, it's the other side. It's like I stare at the picture and I'm like, is that a bike? That might be a bike. Maybe it's just a tire? And then I'll click on it and be like, no, man, we know you're a robot. I'm like,
people don't think like that.
It takes too long for you to click on stuff. Like, all right, cool.
I didn't realize they had a time. I didn't realize they had a temporal factor in that.
There's some interesting ones which are like straighten out the picture. Like they'll show you a llama that's sideways and you need to just straighten it out, which seems pretty easy, right? But if you don't do it in like a split second, because a human could do that relatively quickly, then they're like,
All right. So far in this Twitter hacker story, we know what two-factor authentication is.
Yeah. And one of the things I'd like to point out is two-factor authentication. I think all three of us crazy security dudes would tell you that you should always have two-factor authentication on. Always. If it's available, you should use it. If it's not available on the site you're on, you shouldn't use the site.
So interesting side story here. This show's going to be called the Neverending Side Story. I started using a password manager for the first time. It's actually really easy.
Nice.
Which one did you choose?
LastPass. Or should I even say? Because,
that's okay. I'm using one password. So you know what?
Okay.
2 out of 3 Patrick uses a little black notebook.
Actually, I use a very old technology that is not accessible on the web, not cloud-based.
Papyrus.
And then I use multiple layers.
With graphite.
And here's the hint. Here's the best tip. I don't put the passwords in my password vault.
Yeah,
I put hints.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is going a little bit extreme, but I like to go extreme.
I let my password vault manage every password. It comes up with a 30-character password every time, whatever.
So what's a SIM swap?
So this is one of the things I wanted to point out is like 2FA, always good. You should always turn it on. And then we get these articles all the time like this.
It doesn't work.
No, it's not where it doesn't work. It's, there are different types of devices you can use for your second factor authentication. Sometimes it's a little like an RSA token fob. Sometimes you're using like a piece of software like Google Authenticator, which is a fantastic piece of software for rotating keys. Or sometimes you get that text in your phone that says, here's a number, right?
Right.
PayPal's notoriously does that, right? Here's the text for the number, or eBay or whatever.
GitHub,
yeah. All of them, you can just text a number. The problem is that means anybody who has access to your phone or phone number can get that number, right? So, okay, you go, okay, cool. If I lose my phone, yeah, I get it. Maybe somebody could get this number and then log into my accounts. But what happened here is completely social engineering.
Okay.
But not against the person.
No, so sometimes that happens where you get a text with a rotating key number from PayPal or whatever, and somebody calls up and says, hey, this is PayPal. We noticed some weird activity on your account. We've texted you a PIN for your account. Can you please tell us what that PIN is so we know that the number is the right number? And that's all BS. PayPal and anybody, they're never going to call you and ask for that PIN. So you should never give it to them.
Right. Yep.
I mean, anybody you can't call and get a hold of a human isn't going to call you.
No.
Right.
No. Yeah, exactly. It's a good rule of thumb. But in this particular case, this was actually somebody conning the phone company. So they call up Verizon or AT&T or whoever and go, oh my gosh, I lost my phone. It's completely was crushed under my car. I got a new phone. Here's some information off of my account, my name and address, et cetera, et cetera. Can you please reset this number to this new SIM?
Yeah.
And they'll do that.
Wow.
Apparently, a lot of times they'll do that.
Wow.
So even though it sounds like 2FA was hacked, it really was the phone company decided to give Plugwalk Joe.
So they would have to have like the last 4 digits of your social security number, like your what do they call them? The security questions, which, if you just answer them all chocolate.
Yeah, pretty much. You probably avoid most of this.
Unless one of the breaches that you use that on.
Yeah, gave away your secret.
Gets breached and gives away that you use chocolate. And if I see it on 2 sites, I'm going to say, oh, that's easy.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you answer them all truthfully, a lot of that stuff's not hard to find, right? Quick background check, whatever.
Yeah, especially because people give away their answers in Facebook polls.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Facebook, not Facebook. Meta? Wait, I don't know. Did they fully change? Is it still Facebook?
I refuse to go with that name.
It's still called Facebook. The app is. Company's Meta.
Go. It's still Facebook. Company's
Meta. Facebook. It's in your Facebook.
Meta.
Up your Facebook.
You know what? Okay, another side story. You know what the weirdest part of that Meta announcement was? Was the fact that he had some Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce on one of his bookshelves in the back.
Actually, I think Zuckerberg was the weirdest thing about that announcement.
Come to think of it.
Weirder than the barbecue sauce.
Very much weirder.
Was that alien Zuckerberg.
You know, I wonder how much he got paid for that product placement.
Oh my God.
Seriously. I mean, that's a brilliant product placement.
That is awesome. Some of the memes that came out after that were amazing.
One of your customers comes to you and says, hey, sales of our barbecue sauce is down. How about you go on the news and put a little bottle on you? Who has a bottle of barbecue sauce on the light stand behind them?
Just in case there's some sort of mad dash to hot meat that you need.
That's right. In case, chicken nuggets magically show up. Oh, chicken nuggets. Well, yes. Good thing I got this barbecue sauce.
I've been prepared for this to happen.
All right. Story number 2, and I can't wait to hear what Pat has to say about this. Grief. A cyber criminal gang has hacked the NRA, according to reports.
Oh, yeah. The NRA is a declining organization. I know that's going to surprise a lot of people, but they've lost their way in so long ago, especially when you found out that they were embezzling. Maybe they weren't embezzling. I got to be careful, but they were basically misallocating the funds and running the organization on the ground. So
Charlton Heston would be rolling over in his grave.
I don't agree with where they've taken the organization, and I don't agree with the way they've run it. If I had been a member, because I haven't been a member in a long time, I would have stopped being a member over the way they handle things. That said, I'm not surprised because they're in such turmoil.
Yeah.
And also they have to be a hacktivist target.
Yeah, oh yeah,
true.
Well, and they say allegedly hacked. So the NRA is very tight-lipped about anything that goes on at the NRA. It's like Fight Club; they don't talk about it. But allegedly, this grief group hit them. No,
it's a ransomware attack. That's about all we know.
I love how the fact that the grief group, whatever, they're thought to be actually linked to Evil Corp, which is some Russian cyber criminal group that has sanctions against them. And I love how they just changed their name. You know what? We're not them anymore. We're somebody else.
No,
we're a new guy.
We're no longer evil.
Work. I'm a new guy now.
We're no longer Evil Corp. We're Grief until the next attack. Then we're not Grief anymore.
Yeah, the whole. I mean, as I'm a gun owner and I shoot.
Really?
But I'm not. Yeah,
what?
No, it's a surprise. It's a surprise. I'm not a rabid one. And the other thing is there were a lot of studies that showed that most NRA members didn't really realize what the NRA was for and against. But there were a lot of things that the NRA was against that the majority of their membership was for, and they would still fight it. And so I stopped paying attention to them a while ago. But I'm not surprised because when an organization starts going under stresses of lawsuits from different states and having, their funding go down, one of the first things people drop is the security. It's the insurance.
Right.
It's a tax in their eyes because it doesn't produce revenue. It doesn't help with PR. It's not something you can eat or taste or drive or fly.
Yeah.
And so it's an easy thing to cut in the budget. But when you do that, this is what happens.
Mm-hmm. So here's another side tangent. Yeah, we're definitely calling this show the Neverending Side Story. Patrick, I'm dying to know what happened at your house on Halloween.
No fresh graves were dug.
Oh, well, that's good.
That's good. Yeah.
Did you dress up as a veteran and go? No,
I dressed up as Bill Belichick. I just wore sweats and walked around. The zero effort. I just wore sweats.
Yeah, good for you.
And then I refused to talk to most people.
Did you give out? Did you have trick or treaters? Did you give out copies of Atlas Shrugged?
No,
no.
We do the ebook now.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I almost killed Dwayne on that
one. I'm good.
I had to time that just right to get him mid-sip.
Spit take. Okay. So we'll leave the NRA to wallow in their ransomware, but let's talk about Linux.
Let's talk about Linux.
Isn't that a Salt and Pepper song?
That would be awesome, but no. So critical RCE, remote code execution vulnerability. So for those of you who've been following this podcast, that just means that remotely an attacker can send some form of code, whether it's popping a buffer, issuing commands or whatever to a remote system, and have it run code on the behalf of that user. And usually that means in an elevated privilege. So, a system level user would run the code for you. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, it was announced on November 4th on the Hacker News. Critical RCE vulnerability reported in Linux's kernel TIPC module,
which is
transparent inter-process communications. So that's one of the few times when naming the acronym doesn't help.
Yeah, right.
So this is a process. So breaking that down a little bit, transparent inter-process communications. So this is a communication protocol. And all a protocol is just the way that services or processes or computers talk to each other.
Yeah.
So you have like this defined language. Yeah, it's like a script.
It's like a script that two parties agree to in order to exchange information accurately.
Is this like semaphores in Windows?
Yeah, kind of. So this process is used for intra-cluster communications. So when you have multiple Linux computers or VMs or whatever clustered together,
meaning so they all look like one server.
Correct. Yeah, they're all working on the same problem. They all look like one server. So I could say go, I don't know, calculate this math problem, and then all start working on it at the same time. And if one of them goes down, the rest of them just continue working.
Right.
Benefit of a cluster.
And sometimes they split up the work and say, okay, we have 12 eggs, so you take 4, you take 4, and you take 4, and then come back and tell me how many there are altogether. I don't know. Was that a bad analogy?
That was fantastic. Thank you.
All right, let's take slices of bacon.
I'm going to give you 4, and you 4, and you 4, and then you tell me how many you have. Wow.
I'm just hungry.
You're making me hungry.
I know.
All right, so let's say you have 10 pounds of bacon. And
bacon.
Bacon. All right, so
what's interesting about this one is there is a part of the protocol is a message, the MSG crypto part of the message. So they have this message that you can send, which is an encrypted packet of data. Right? Because you don't want people seeing what that packet is. And they've done all sorts of validations on this to see that you're not sending too much data. So this ends up being a buffer overrun.
Ah, okay.
So you're, in essence, let's say they're asking for 128 bytes worth of data for the package, and you're sending it 256 bytes. Well, they're really good about checking that for the message length. They say, okay, you can't do that. That's too much. Throw the packet out. What they're not really good about checking is the crypto key. So the key itself, when you overflow the buffer, gives you the ability to then pop information onto the stack and do all sorts of stuff.
Wow. So the second 128 bytes of that key is actually code, right?
Yes, exactly. And interestingly, that code, that key overflow, you have a couple different places that when you start executing programs, they execute in memory. You have the stack and you have what's called the heap. The stack is an area in memory where your program is actually running. So it's where all the executable code is. The heap is a location where all global variables reside. So most programs are multi-threaded. If a thread in a program, thread A, is trying to access data that's created by thread B, that data from thread B, if it's global, is sitting in the heap.
A million eyes just turned into glazed donuts.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's talk about T-Bin's cache.
Let's go back to bacon and eggs.
Let's bring back, I thought semaphore was going to be the most technical thing anybody said on this podcast.
All you know about semaphore was what they used to land planes with or something, right?
Let me distill it a little bit.
Help. I need somebody. Help.
Moral of the story.
Okay.
You're morally bankrupt at this point.
I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let Patrick and Carl take over.
How about that Dwayne guy? What a jerk.
The hell was he talking about? Stack and heap? So this is a programmer.
What I will tell, if you're a programmer, you're like, yep, nodding along. And if you're not a programmer, don't worry about it.
You just parachuted in from the Star Trek Enterprise.
Just ask your programmer to listen to this and explain it to you. And if they succeed, hire them.
Give us their name.
I would love to talk about stacks and heaps because it excites me. I like it. But
it is
I think we could do a show if we ever get a slow news week, which we've never seen, we never will. Yeah. I would love to do a show where we explain to the regular people who aren't programmers, don't need to be programmers, what a buffer overflow is and how it works, and explain it
awesome.
Because it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. But it's easy to glaze people's eyes over on it.
All right. So,
there's a whole subsect of buffer overruns that have all sorts of special names.
Yeah.
The House of Orange, the House of Pain, the House of Iger. I mean, there's subsects that we could go into and talk entire shows on how the heap is manipulated.
And both listeners would really, really love it. So
Mom,
let's get out of Linux land. Yeah, let's get out of Linux land and move to the next one.
All right.
Yes.
Which is the next one?
Hackers exploiting GitLab unauthenticated remote code execution flaw in the wild. First of all, can we just unpack what is GitLab and what does in the wild mean?
When you have a vulnerability that's been disclosed.
Yeah.
There's two ways it can get disclosed. One, a very reputable security researchers found it, has disclosed it to the organization who owns the software, ethically lets them know, gives them a certain time frame, whether it's 30 days, 90 days, whatever, to fix the problem.
Right.
And then announces it. So that's one form of disclosure. Another form of disclosure is a hacker starts using it to maliciously take over the piece of software, whatever it is, and security researchers see the use of that, and then they figure it out, and then they announce it.
Not really disclosure.
That's typically what in the wild is.
Discovery.
That's right. Discoverability. Yeah.
So in this case, they've seen this being used.
I see.
And so there was no time to let the vendor know, hey, I'm going to give you 90 days to fix this, and then we're going to we'll publish, and that'll give people plenty of time to patch and stuff. Now, there's a period of time where everyone is pucker factor 11 because they're like, there's no fix for this, or there may not be a fix for it.
Yeah, but what's funny about this one is the patch itself to fix this problem has been out since April 14th.
Wow.
Which is still a shame on you.
Yeah, I don't remember if in the article they say how many of the installations, but right now telemetry data gathered by Boston-based company shows that 60,000 internet-facing GitLab installations, of 60,000 of them, only 21% are patched.
Wow.
I'm not very mathy, but that's not 100%. So
not a lot.
No, it is not even close.
So what's interesting here is this comes back to our same section of the segment we typically have, which is the patch this now. Mm-hmm. If you're listening to this podcast and you have a GitLab installation somewhere, you may be in that 20% kudos where you've patched it, but if not, shame on you. Go patch it.
This is an endemic problem. The OWASP top 10, any list of vulnerabilities that you go through shouldn't be things anymore, because people should have learned the lessons of SQL injection and debugging and not trusting inputs. And patching is just the very first step. So if an organization has computers and they're not patching them, you might as well just publish the passwords on the internet.
Yeah.
So let's say you compromise tens of thousands of servers. What do you do with them?
Botnet
to do what?
Whatever I want.
Whatever I want. What would you do with a botnet?
I'm an ethical person, so I would disassemble it. But if I put my black hat on,
Mm-hmm.
You could use it for denial of service.
They use it for denial of service. Very good.
Sharper.
Number 1, threat actors are now actively exploiting this security flaw to co-opt the unpatched GitLab servers into a botnet to launch a distributed denial of a service attack that is in excess of 1 terabits per second.
Wow.
Have they launched it in anybody yet?
The article is not clear as to who's getting slapped with that, but
all right,
somebody is.
One ridiculously short side story, which is
Take 3.
You don't need to know what GitLab is. Just know that it's software that software development teams use to produce and publish software. That's about all you need to know.
Unless you're using it, then you should know more.
Then you should know more, like how to patch it.
If you didn't know what it was, don't worry about it. It's a piece of enterprise software that people use.
And don't patch.
Apparently.
Yeah. So what would you do else? What else would you do? So that was a good question. So you do distributed denial of service. You might have it click on your content to run up your content.
I would guarantee no visitors at Halloween.
That's right. There you go.
Guarantee.
With your botnet.
You could do crypto mining on
I would
other
probably
people's
do
hardware.
crypto mining. That would be my jam. Because, crypto is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually one of the more benign ways for them to use it. All they're doing is stealing. I mean, it's still bad, but they're stealing some of your processing time and electricity, but they're not grinding someone under their booted, jackbooted heel.
I would have it mine Ethereum into a bazillion different accounts and then automate moving that around a lot. And then offload it into a token like she
seem to have thought about this a little too much.
Push it offshore. It's just off the top of my head. That's
very specific plan there, Dwayne.
Really specific as to what you would do. Or get it to crack passwords. That might be cool too.
Yeah, turn it into crack class. Or you could just do SETI online, involuntarily enlist people's computers and do the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Find aliens. I like it.
So I don't know if you guys remember this, but early on in .NET Rocks, Richard Campbell, my co-host, talked about water cooling his PC.
Mm.
And this was back in the days when,
Wait, is
PCs
this a side story?
Yeah, the Pentiums ran so hot that they would, melt plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to crank his, processor up as far as it would go
to
and
11.
play games. Yeah. So he had this water cooling thing, and it essentially attaches to the water things attached to the CPU and all the things that have heat, and the heat goes then through the water and it circulates. And so one of the jokes was he had the water going through a coffee warmer. And he said, my coffee's getting cold. I think I should run a couple of SETI at home work units.
That's awesome.
All right. Should we talk about this one? The State Department is offering a $10 million reward for information on this group, the Dark Side Group. And I also might warn people that this is like a local news website. And as soon as I went there, somebody started talking to me, like video started playing without being muted, which is like a cardinal sin of the internet. So just be aware.
Damn you, 9 News. Damn you.
I know.
I think that this is the beginning of the retribution in the real world. This is the dipping the toe in the water of, okay, we're going to put a bounty on you. Some people will turn in their own family members for that much money.
Right.
Oh, I think this is awesome.
Yeah. I think this is the first step in, Tomahawks becoming deployable.
So the Dark Side Group they were blamed for the Colonial Pipeline ransomware thing, which supplies roughly half the fuel for the East Coast. And so the federal government is offering $10 million if you have information on the people that did this. Wow.
And $5 million, another $5 million is being offered for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of anyone conspiring or attempting to take part in an effort to use the dark side variant. So there is, I think this is awesome. I think we're going to start to see a lot of cyber bounty hunters out there.
Ooh. Well,
I hadn't thought about that.
We learned a lot about incentives, from behavioral economics and things in the last 10, 15 years. And, nothing says incentive like money.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe this is the new justice we're looking at here.
It spends so much better than beaver pelts.
Hey, I'm not Canadian, man.
Hey.
That's Richard Campbell, eh?
So maybe this is how, as a ransomware owner, you get paid now. You go out and make devastating attacks.
And then you turn your buddy in.
When the money comes up for reward, you sell out one of your partners. Right? And now you get
we need
paid
to come
by
up
the
with a
government.
partner.
That's nice and clean.
Yeah. Who could we add to our who could we use for a foursome that we could sell out?
Well, the thing to do is to just do it yourself. Do one person and then turn yourself in.
Like, I did it.
Yeah, I did it. I'll go to jail, but at least my family gets to keep my money.
Screw that! I want it in my my account at the commissary. Cheetos for everybody.
Pay me first, and then I'll tell you who it is. It's me.
I'm 100% certain it was me.
All right.
But it is interesting. It opens up the door to, like, okay, they say any information leading to these people.
Right.
So I think they're hoping that people who are close to the group will rat them out.
Yeah.
Right.
But it doesn't stop anybody from being an investigator and trying to figure out, okay, who are these guys? And, where did the code come from, and trying to track them back, and company organizations.
This was a technique used against Al Qaeda. They don't publicize how often they got paid and they paid out, but from what I understand, they did pay out bounties on Al Qaeda members who got turned in. So, well, I don't have it on, strong. I don't have any proof of that, but I believe it anecdotally.
I don't have it on State Department letterhead.
No, I do not.
Okay, fair enough.
So we're going to leave you this week, with some statistics. This is an article published on nordlocker.com.
Because if Heap Talk didn't glaze your eyes over, statistics will win.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I think this will be slightly more interesting than Heaps and Stacks, though. Well, certainly by more people. So this is top industries hit by ransomware. And construction, number one. Manufacturing, I'm going to go in order. And just to tell you that the difference between the top and the bottom is only, 20 points? 30 points? So construction, percentage points. Construction, manufacturing, finance, healthcare, education, technology, and IT, right in the middle. Logistics and transportation, automotive, municipal services, and legal. It's funny how legal is like the least likely to get hit by ransomware. I wonder why that is.
It is weird.
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that a lot of legal firms have not computerized their records.
Switched over to the digital age? Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you look at this list and you look at the percentages, I don't consider construction, manufacturing to be that technologically advanced.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. But they are automated. They are, plugged in, they are using, they're competitive. They're squeezing all the advantages they can.
Agree.
But I could see them like making convenience an important part of it. And my mantra.
But finance and healthcare surprised me.
I think that's
I was surprised by finance that it was third on the list. Yeah. I would have assumed it number one.
I think both of those.
That's where the money is.
I think both of those along with education, tend to be cheap when it comes to things that don't. If you're the CIO or the CTO or the CEO of one of these companies or an organization in education, healthcare, or finance, you're either focused on not spending money because you don't have a lot, or making more money because that's the focus of healthcare in some cases, and finance in all cases.
I should also mention that the sample size is pretty small. If you look at construction and open that up for details, the total amount of the companies are 93.
Right.
So 93 companies in the top.
But it's still a high percentage.
It's a high percentage, yeah, but it's a small sample size.
Right. Yeah. And I think the reason legal, automotive, and municipal services are lower is because I think they're either more segregated. Like I can see an automotive plant where they're just not connected to the internet.
Well, And I wonder with these statistics, we have 62 companies in technology and IT. And I wonder if that is obfuscating a little bit of this, because you take a look at a lot of the breaches like SolarWinds, which would have technically been an IT company that was breached, but all of the industries that were breached downstream from that are entirely different, right? So some of those IT companies, quote unquote, are probably a piece of technology that was breached in an IT company to then go get a financial company or then go get a manufacturing company or something along those lines.
So the next thing that they reveal is the most prolific ransomware gangs. And they have, it's not a pie chart, but it's a circular, whatever they call it, a donut chart. But if you look at these gang names, they look like rock band names. Conti, Revel, Doppelpaymer,
Hive Leaks,
Pisa,
the Wrens,
Klopp. Klopp sounds like a Norwegian skinhead band. Klopp. Ranger Locker, Ransom X, Lorenz, Payload bin. Yeah. Payload bin. Anyway, it's some summer reading for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anything else you guys want to talk about before we hit the button?
No, I'm good. It's been good. Good week.
No, it hasn't. Yeah, it hasn't honestly been a terrible week for cyber, which is really good.
And we didn't mention the Microsoft word or the Russian word.
Oh, and you know what else happened this week in cyber? For those of you who may or may not follow, Pwn to Own.
Huh.
Have you guys heard of Pwn to Own?
No.
Pwn to Own's really cool.
Is it like rent to own?
No, think like competition for security researchers.
Oh,
and they go out and they're given a certain type of device and they get paid and get points for the types of devices that they compromise during the competition. So they'll say, hey, we have this brand new Canon printer or Lexmark, and go, hack it. And these groups will come up with 0-day exploits that have not been patched.
Wow.
And get $20,000, $30,000 just for that one exploit. So one of the groups breached, I think it was a Lexmark, and was able to put their logo on that little LCD on the front.
Wow.
Through a buffer overrun. And they were like, okay, cool, $20,000. And they got, and then there were routers in there. So they have all different types of devices. And each of the groups, I believe, gets the same device to look at. And then whoever turns in the 0-day first, it's a massive amount of 0 days come out of this one event, which is awesome.
So is that a bug bounty?
I don't, honestly, I don't know how they run it. It is like a bug bounty, but it's run like a competition. So if you ever follow the Pwn to Own, I think it's the Zero Project something or other. We'll put
0 Day Initiative.
There you go. Ever follow them on Twitter? If you start watching during Pwn to Own, it literally like almost like there's an announcer at a sports event. They'll be like, "Oh no!" and this team didn't make it in enough time,
that's awesome.
This team has $20,000, type of thing, which is pretty awesome.
Wow, very cool. All right, I added those links.
Very cool.
So have a safe week, gentlemen and listeners.
You too.
You too.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
And remember, patch.
Thanks, everybody.
Patch. Bye.